What's going on, guys, and welcome back to WrestleRant, where I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network. Today we're talking ECW, the night the line was crossed, 1994. So, I said here a few weeks ago on the show that my plan was to review all the ECW shows I had not yet watched for WrestleRant, review those before moving on to, like the other WWE pay-per-views I haven't talked about yet, all the 2018 pay-per-views, the WCW pay-per-views, Impact pay-per-views / TNA, whatever, all that other stuff. And then, and this happened right after I said that too, I said, listen, there's only a handful of ECW pay-per-views left to review. I might as well get those all out of the way, which will take about maybe a month or so, to review all those, put them up here on the channel, and then move on. Literally right after I said that, no more than a few days later, did WWE, after all these years, finally upload all the ECW Super Shows. Like all the shows that were not yet on the network, all the 94, 95, 96, 97 shows that weren't technically pay-per-views, they were exactly that Super Shows, and they're now on the network. So I figured I would include these with my pay-per-view reviews and get to these before I finish out my ECW pay-per-view reviews from 2000 and 2001. There's only about maybe 6 to 8 left of the 2001 shows from ECW. There's a bunch of these Super Shows, though, so we're going to try to knock these out of the way before getting to those. And unfortunately, this show sucked. I thought the early shows would be something special, some great wrestling, and maybe there are some great matches on these shows. I saw WWE.com put up an article a few weeks ago about, matches you need to see from the new ECW shows that we just uploaded to the network after 5 years. I mean, the ECW pay-per-views have been readily available on the network now for 5 years. And now all of a sudden, over 5 years later, they finally decide to upload the Super Shows. So, terrible timing on, really just on my part. I guess I should have gotten to these sooner. But nonetheless, this show was absolutely atrocious. And again, maybe some of the later shows are better. The other shows from 94, 95, 96 could be better than this one, but this show just fucking sucked. We kicked off the show with Mr. Hughes taking on Sal Bellomo, something like that, and about a 3-minute match. This was a complete nothing match. Bellomo went over, that's how you pronounce it, with the Boss Man Slam, the big Boss Man's old finisher, the walking sidewalk slam. This was a nothing match, like I said. A tag team double dog collar chain match followed that, with the Sandman and Tom Caro, something like that, taking on the tag team of Rockin' Rebel and Pitbull #1. Oh my god, this shit was terrible. Anything involving a dog collar is bound to be atrocious anyway, but this was a complete and total fucking mess. Sandman and Tommy went over here, not Tommy Dreamer, but Cairo, whatever, however you pronounce it, after they used, I don't know, their finisher. I forgot what even ended this match. It just kind of ended abruptly. Thankfully, it was no more than 5 minutes long, but it was about 4 minutes and 59 seconds too long. This match was fucking terrible. Granted, I think it might have been the best possible match type for these guys, because from what I've heard and, from around this time period, a lot of the guys involved in this match were no good. So probably the stipulation worked to their, strengths, played to their strengths, but the actual stipulation just sucked. I think a normal tag team match would have been just fine, but it was one giant brawl that was no good. We had another brawl follow that with the Bruise Brothers taking on the Public Enemy. This was slightly better, but not by much. It was called a No Rules Tag Team match. I should probably note this before we go any further, but at this point, ECW was still Eastern Championship Wrestling, not yet Extreme Championship Wrestling. So although there were hardcore elements about the show, it was not at a point yet where every match on the show is a hardcore match. Like the shows I've been reviewing in recent weeks and recent months and whatnot, where every match is fucking hardcore, no disqualification, blah, blah, blah. This was still at a point where every match was normal, with the occasional stipulation match. But despite that, we had a lot of garbage matches on the show, including this one. Again, it was better than the dog collar match, which was total trash, but still not that good. So Public Enemy ended up going over by hitting one of the Bruise Brothers with a fucking 2x4, so you would think Hacksaw Jim Duggan arrived in ECW at this point. It was just one giant brawl that probably went on for a little longer than it needed to, at about 8 minutes long, but it was a little better than the previous match, so there was that. We had Jimmy Snuka taking on Tommy Dreamer. Yes, this match actually happened, and it was fucking terrible. Snuka was well past his prime at this point. He had no business being in the ring. He is a former ECW champion, Eastern Championship Wrestling champion. I think he was the inaugural ECW champion, if I'm not mistaken. But he was a heel here. He got great heel heat. The actual match was terrible. Dreamer tried his best, but this was no good. They tried to put over Dreamer in defeat by having him kick out of the Superfly Splash, but it didn't really feel like it packed a punch. I mean, Joey Styles was creaming his pants on commentary going, oh, no one ever kicks out of the Superfly Splash. But I don't know. I mean, that very well may have been the case, but in this moment when Dreamer kicked out, it was like, okay, whatever. I mean, Dreamer was bleeding from the mouth. They treated it like a huge deal. He ended up taking 2 more after that, and that was what earned Snuka the victory. But as a match, this was fucking terrible. Snuka had, again, no business being in the ring at this point in his career. So Snuka goes over. They take Dreamer out of the arena. Todd Gordon, who I believe was the commissioner of ECW at that point, before Paul Heyman, he comes out. He gets attacked by Snuka too. So again, this was all about getting heat on Snuka. And in that respect, it worked. But as a match, it was no good. We had another tag team match after that with Pat Tanaka and the Sheik taking on Kevin Sullivan and the Tasmaniac, obviously being fucking Taz, who, of all people in this match, ended up taking the pinfall loss here. This guy would go on to be an undefeated force in ECW for years. But in this match, he was beaten in 3 minutes with a fucking fireball. That goes to show how bad ECW was how bad ECW was at that point, and how bad this match was. The match was terrible. Tanaka and the Sheik went over again by pinning Tasmaniac, whatever you want to call him, with the fireball. They didn't even catch the ending on camera. That's how bad this was. Like, there was a brawl going on at ringside between Sheik and Sullivan. So then in the ring, Taz gets hit by a fireball by Tanaka, but the cameras didn't even catch it. And you just see the aftermath of it. You see the fireball, but you don't see Taz getting hit with the fireball. It was just a fucking mess. This was terrible. Absolutely terrible. We had a great 2-minute match after that. This was the only bright spot on this entire show, and it was 2 minutes long, between JT Smith and Mike Awesome. Now, Mike Awesome I recently talked about on my recent ECW reviews, with him being the ECW World Heavyweight Champion, his awesome matches with Masato Tanaka. Mike Awesome was indeed awesome. They had a phenomenal match here, him and Smith. That was, again, only 2 minutes long. Why? I have no idea. But for the 2 minutes they had, this was fantastic. Awesome went all out here. He did a top rope plancha, I believe it's called, over the top rope, and it just got a great reaction. The crowd went nuts for that. He was super over by the end of this thing. He had great athleticism. Smith was great here. He sold awesome for awesome. No pun intended, I guess. And Smith ended up winning out of nowhere with a small package. So this ended way too abruptly. This was way too short, considering the main event ended up going a fucking hour. This should have either gone an hour or at least half that time, with the amount of time they gave to the main event, because this was way too short, just criminally short. But again, it was great while it lasted. And then we get to the main event for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. Terry Funk taking on Sabu and Shane Douglas in a 3-way dance. So before it became a 3-way, it was supposed to be Sabu and Shane taking each other on one-on-one, with the winner earning a title shot against Terry Funk right afterward. But if there was no winner in a certain period of time, it might have been 5-10 minutes, I forgot exactly what it was, then Funk would just be added in, and it would become a 3-way dance. And that's exactly what happened. And with an hour left in the show, you knew exactly where this was going. Yes, it ended in a time limit draw after not 30 minutes, not even 45 minutes, a fucking hour. With Terry Funk going an hour in 1994, just simply not necessary. Not necessary. The match was so boring. So fucking boring. They picked up the pace in the final few minutes, but they had interference. It was just a mess. They had people interfering and trying to cost Funk the title. Again, it was just all around a mess and just flat out boring. As a 10, maybe 20-minute match, it could have been okay. A very good main event if you shaved out the first fucking 30 minutes, if not 45 minutes of this thing. But as it stood, it was a very underwhelming main event. You may see the time and be like, oh, this must be an instant classic on the level of like a Flair and a Steamboat. Not by a country mile. This was beyond boring. So again, ended in a time limit draw. Funk therefore retains the ECW title. They had a few post-match interviews with people backstage with Joey Styles and blah, blah, blah. This show sucked. Almost everything I should say about this show sucked. The only saving grace of this pay-per-view, or Super Show, whatever you want to call it, is the JT Smith and Mike Awesome match. Everything else was downright deplorable, including that main event. Oh my god, that was a chore to sit through. So don't even waste your time on the show. I was optimistic going in because it's about 2 hours in length, half of that is wasted on the main event. So they have like 5 or 6 undercard matches that all go like 5 to 10 minutes, with the exception of the Smith and Austin match, which went 2 minutes, which is ridiculous. And then the main event went an hour. This whole thing was just a complete waste of time. Maybe, again, the other ECW Super Shows are better, and I'm cautiously optimistic about those. I will get to those eventually here on WrestleRant in the weeks and months to come. But this show alone was not a great indication of how good or entertaining, whatever you want to call it, ECW was at that point. Because the product, apparently, with Snuka and Terry Funk on top, was no good. They were well past their prime and had no business being top guys in this promotion. They had to build up new stars, which is what exactly Paul Heyman would end up doing years later. But as it stood at that point, the product was no good because this show was terrible. So again, if anything, spare 2 minutes of your time to check out JT Smith and Mike Awesome. Great match for what it was. Everything else is an easy skip. And that was my review of ECW The Night the Line Was Crossed 1994, one of the new ECW Super Shows recently added to the network. Check it out. Don't check it out. It's up to you. If you want to waste 2 hours of your time, please do so. But if anything, I would solely check out Mike Awesome and JT Smith, like I said. And more importantly, guys, thank you for checking out my review of the show. I very much appreciate it. You can like the video, drop a comment, share the video, subscribe to the channel for more content, more WrestleRant videos coming up in the weeks and months to come, more ECW pay-per-view reviews. Oh, yay. I will not stop with these until I'm done. And there's not a lot of shows left. The Super Shows being added to the network. The Super Shows being added to the network will back me up a bit, but it's no worries. We'll get through them, for better or for worse. That being said, guys, have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.